PM optimisation is a process that starts with the existing maintenance schedules, failure history and technical documentation and creates the same maintenance program as classical RCM, but in 1/6 of the time with 1/6 of the resource requirements. Throughout 2006, Belco conducted research into the various RCM methods and found that PM optimisation would be the most effective program. The analysis of all key generating assets and the training was completed in a 5-week period, a task that would have taken at least 6 months using traditional RCM. And the results exceeded Belco's expectations.
So we had quite a good look into what's out there, and we essentially reached the conclusion that PM optimization was the way to go for us, because we're not a new plant. Like I said, we've been in business over 100 years. Culturally, to me, it made much more sense to be getting the participation of the frontline staff in the process of looking at our existing tasks and going through and optimizing them in that sense. We also had a goal of having our downtime. Management are concerned about how long these are going to take, so we said we'll do it in 12 months. When we went to the workshop, I was just thinking electrical, mechanical, but there were huge opportunities with the operators. So I was pleased by the comments by our CEO, because the work that we were doing, in his view, represents the future of the company. The kind of thinking behind it, the analysis, and a view to getting the maximum value on our existing asset through using people on the front line from the operating group. I really underestimated the input that they could make to the process. 1 or 2 of their concerns about maintenance and what's going on in their plants. So we were going around the room, and one guy, he's the head of the union, and he says, as his introduction, my name is so-and-so, and I don't care what happens in this workshop, the time it takes to do the work will be the time it takes to do the work, and that's it. It's not going to change. It's like, okay, that's a good introduction. So straight from the start, it's like, I haven't seen what you're presenting. I haven't been to the workshop, I haven't done anything, but nothing will change because of so on and so forth. So we said, okay, fine, and I moved on. Anyway, I'll come back to the second part of that story later. So this is just a series of images I had thrown onto a slide just to sort of kind of share with you the kind of energy that took place during the workshops themselves. And I say that, we kept the same, and even some of that changed in the sense that we got a chance to edit the tasks, which Steve hated because it took us so long. 10% of stuff, we had new tasks that just weren't being done before to cover failure modes. So needless to say, we were very pleased with the outcome. So the next thing we had to do was, for the pilot project, then to go and present that to management. And this is really where we kind of got on the map. There was a little bit of tension between union and management at the time. But the CEO came as one of the audience members for the management presentation, and he was just blown away by seeing his union staff telling him how they were going to do their job better, how the plant was going to run better. And it was just like, it was unheard of, in that era. But again, I go back to, if you're rational and you're doing things that make sense, it doesn't really matter who's doing it. If it makes sense, it makes sense. So that was a big deal for us. And to sort of close out my previous story in terms of the guy who was saying that the jobs would take as long as they would take, at that same meeting, he was saying in the presence of the CEO that, in a lot of cases, we were being told to make donuts for the sake of making donuts. And it was very clear once we went through the analysis that it made sense to delete, these 20% of the PMs. So again, that was a really big win for us, for somebody in such an influential position, to make such a statement. Needless to say, the results actually exceeded our expectations. And from that point, we had solid evidence that this does work for a large diesel-fired power station. And we went on to roll that out across the balance of our plant.
In introduction to Mark, I don't know how he kind of got to the position, but I think the passion is the reason he's in the position he is. He took a job on in One Steel. That wasn't necessarily his role, but his passion for reliability and maintenance improvement and things like that kind of made him a focal point in One Steel, and that's the way I describe it from an outsider. One Steel started with us pretty much about 18 months ago.
So we're an integrated steel manufacturer, so we actually have our own mine. We have our own blast furnace in Waratah. We have, is it 3 EAFs? Three electric arc furnaces, Sydney, Melbourne and Waratah and Newcastle. We understood our plant and we understood what was important, so that's what we started at. So we started at the things that needed, the continuous lines in the business. We found out that we needed to improve things. The business plan at my mill was we're going to go and work on it. There was about 3 different things, but fundamentally we're going to go and work on our strategies. So in 2008, I did it as part of a master's I completed, but I did a review of RCM tools, and fundamentally I talked about how many are available. This is the ones that I looked at, and I didn't look at them super extensively, but I did a bit of an assessment of them, and there certainly is plenty available. And I think I'll give you the outcome of that. This is straight out of my recommendations. So I'd actually said, Meridian package pretty well does everything we want to do, but there's no way in the world we're going to be able to apply that because it's a corporate solution. I mean, we'd be spending millions of dollars at a high level. PMO is likely to be the best meet us at a business unit need. Okay, so we thought we can actually apply this at a business unit and it's not going to cost us all that much to do it. The 2008-2009 crash led us to take up the 1-year licence PMO for free. It was actually, like I said, I'd reviewed it, so I knew the process was good. Okay, and I was fairly happy with it. So I said, okay, we'll do the pilot in Geelong now. So we completed on a wire drawing group in 2010. The machines are 6 machines, all fairly similar. So the peak come down for a week, and most of that was generated within that week. So we had a whole group of 6. Reviewed, very significant change, but I'll show you some results. So the guys from Geelong are ringing me saying, oh, this is really good, we really like this process. SAP interface has been an issue for us in that there's been issues in that our waste department aren't happy with what OMCS is suggesting, and they're not actually active in trying to resolve that, okay? Well, they are, but in a different way. They think that they'll resolve it. So, does that really matter? Probably not at the moment, okay? So we also found lack of SAP interface is not a significant issue. These sorts of reports are really easy to get out of it. So when you've done an assessment, you can see there's about 500 and something, over 600 tasks there that we've reviewed in these 3 machines. Okay, so they would have taken, it's probably been a week's worth of work for each one of them, maybe a little bit more. Corporate have taken over the PMO program and user management, extending the use of PMO2000. Discuss licensing, agree that corporate group would look at finance and support. We've sent a number of people to facilitate a training. Setting up standard libraries. Guys from operational excellence group are just starting to do that now. So we've got 3 or 4 rolling mills, and the roll stand's fundamentally the same. We build up a PM strategy for that and be able to move it from plant to plant. People are involved in the process and see PMO software in action, they begin to understand it and like it. Okay, so that's pretty unusual when you get a bunch of operators in the room and they actually start to see this work and they get involved in it. So what's the prize? So why is this a benefit to us? So to improve the cost associated to our PM system by 2%, it's 1.4 million. Okay, there's more to it than that, but for each 1% improvement in R&M costs, we save 3.8 million. Now we're aiming for 5 to 10% improvement. You can see where it starts to be a benefit.
Randall, once again, like many of the other people, had some insight into how his business could improve, and amongst all the other methods and methodologies, one of the ones he uses was our approach. And he's been pushing that a few years here now, and we have people from Fonterra in New Zealand, and so, you know, with success grows popularity, and hopefully that the other people within the Fonterra group will share in some of those successes too.
Because when we're talking about reliability within Fonterra, we're also talking about sustainability of our plants going forward into the future. And become evident that we needed to find a tool to help us with reviewing our strategies on site. And we needed operations involvement, we needed senior management on site's agreement and tick off, that we're able to actually embark on this journey. How we've moved from being reactive into a more of a preventative type environment, and PMO has certainly been our tool. Using the knowledge that's available. You know, some of these reviews were being done in an office with guys that were managing the maintenance process but weren't actually out on the floor any longer. Had a look at PMO, and that became our tool then to assist us going forward to where we are. Moved away from the more traditional model of the reliability model, and we moved more into what's now like a continuous improvement model. To deliver an asset care strategy right across the site, we're now targeting the specific pieces of equipment. Through the process, we've had team building, and you know, we've had operations and maintenance together. The workshop, and he said that's the best thing I've done in all my work in life. You know, I'm a firm believer that by using the outside people to actually facilitate the workshop, you know, we've probably got the skills in the site now to be able to probably facilitate, but I think having that external person come and do it gives a different perspective and the ability to challenge individuals when they're coming up with how we should care for this piece of equipment. Well, we're using, you know, PMO as our asset care library, so that's our real-time library of all the activities that we need to do. We're starting to see this, what can be done potentially by operators and what is maintenance doing. Through this, we've been able to identify, you know, what is our cost of maintenance on these lines through man hours and also through spares and parts, which has given us a better control on the budgeting process. So it's real information that we can set the budget with and prove to our senior management that this is the amount of work we need to do to make sure this plant and equipment will be reliable going forward. One of the important things we did with our groups was celebrate the success. You know, those guys that have been on those teams and stuff, you know, they've been rewarded. And the whole time whilst we're doing this, we're trying to push that, you know, the reliability of the plant isn't maintenance responsibility, and it's not, you know, production's responsibility. It's both us. Through, you know, we're going to determine the strategy through using the PMO process. You know, then we're going to execute the work. We're going to all review the KPIs. And at the end of the day, we're going to get the production out the door, you know, in a cooperative process, cooperative manner. And we've picked the tool, you know, PMO, and that process is working for us really.
Eventually, we ran a pilot program for Port Waratah Coal, and here we are today. They've completed one of their plants.
Well, the objective was to basically to increase both reliability and maintenance efficiency. There wasn't one thing that we focused on. We wanted a broad-ranging thing. One of the things that we did as part of the PMO process was to rebuild our outage schedule. We run on an 8-week cycle, and part of the process was with the preventive maintenance program was try and eliminate where we could conflicts between electricians and mechanics and contractors and engineering and all that sort of stuff right up front.
And our existing PM completion rate, Peter said there in 2006 it was about 10%. I got some figures here. It says in 2007 that was running about 76%. We also needed to have a increase in our machine reliability and availability to meet the demands of the coal chain. We underwent some training with OMCS on one of our reclaimers, 411 reclaimer. From that trial run, it was decided that we wanted to move ahead with PMO. One of the things we also did there was create a photo library. When those guys went out and done an equipment review, what they did was do a photo essay of the conveyor or the reclaimer or something like that. And they brought all those photos back, put them onto the computer, and that has become an invaluable resource to us. That's where we'd write all our what we call maintenance instruction sheets, which is a procedure on how to do a particular job or something like that. So that was how we interfaced between PMO and Maximo. PM man hours, we've dropped them down roughly 8.5%. Doesn't sound like much. Works out to be roughly about 1,300 man hours over our 64-week maintenance cycle. Breakdown work orders, we're currently seeing a drop of around about 12% in our breakdown work orders. It's been there for a while. Our breakdown rate has actually dropped by around about 30%. PM completion rate, as we talked about before, it's gone from 76% in 2008 up to 92% last year, which is a pretty good improvement all up. PMO is going to go for many, many years, I hope, on site, and those results, I hope, will still keep coming in.